Glatorian Arena is a 2009 Flash game once hosted on the LEGO website featuring characters from the Bionicles toy line. It was a game I remember enjoying as a kid, so on a whim I went back to see if my nostalgia held up or if my standards were just too low back then. Now, by the time that Glatorian Arena had come out, Bionicle was in an interesting place. The Glatorian Wave, which Arena is based on, was largely separated from the 8+ years of Bionicle toys that had come before. Though there were 6 main figures in the first line, these weren't toy heroes with masks of power, but humble arena fighters proving themselves to their fellows and their tribes. In the game, we can learn about this new world by speaking to the Agori, small little Bionicles that make up the majority of the villagers on this planet. We learn that this planet is Bear Magna, a largely barren planet orbited by 2 smaller moons. Despite being barren, Bear Magna still hosts a relatively thriving population, all striving to survive. In the past, there were massive wars between Agori tribes over various natural resources, with grave costs. In order to avoid these devastating wars, the Agori came together and created the arenas, places where select champions could battle for their tribe. By turning their disputes from massive wars into gladiatorial affairs, the Agori tribes were able to live together in relative harmony. When we first start our Glatorian career, we only have access to Gresh, the literally green rookie hoping to prove himself to his tribe and fellow Glatorian. If we have a code from a Bionicle canister, we can also unlock other fighters, but we'll skip that for now. We can unlock them in other ways. One of the first things that I noticed about Glatorian Arena is how eerie it feels. Most of the time, even in the arena, it's extremely quiet, with often only your footsteps or the wind to break the silence. Even big moments like the crowd cheering are ominous, as the effects sound more like a distant monster roaring than a crowd. The only time you'll hear music is in your locker room, and even then the music is a subdued hum, quiet and eerie like the rest of the game. Personally, I like this eeriness, as combined with the simple 3D graphics give me this intensely lonely feeling I felt from games like Halo CE. It's hard to explain, but if you know, you know. The Glatorian Arena has 5 leagues for you to get through, facing the same 5 fighters over and over at increasing difficulty, though from experience, this difficulty only means raising their stats, such as giving them more health and damage. These fights can be both super hard and super easy, which I'll explain in a bit. But for now, I basically end up putting all of the points I get into my attack stat, due to, for what I'll call for now, some of the jankiness of this game. Now, when I say these fights can be hard and easy, the difficulty stems from both your own limited moves and the fighter's AI and cheating. Let's start with Teryx, the Glatorian of the Water Tribe and the first fighter you'll face. Teryx is a little bitch. Teryx has one of the smarter AIs, meaning he likes to back up to make distance, dodge your attacks, or block them, meaning it's pretty difficult to actually get a hit in. He likes to back up a lot, meaning you have to slowly trudge toward him to actually fight. There is no dash, or jump, or anything to close the distance faster. You walk. Now, you do have a ranged weapon, the Thornax launcher, but you only have 3 shots, and there's always the chance the enemy will dodge, so this isn't a reliable way to deal with targets. There's also the risk that both fighters will shoot at the same time, trading damage. That isn't even mentioning the cheating the AI can do. As the player, you have a light and heavy attack, with the light attack being quick and dealing low damage, and the heavy attack being slow and dealing high damage. However, you'll quickly find out that both of these attacks are fairly slow, making it difficult to land hits even with the light attack, which is made even worse by both attacks having a pitifully short range. The cheating comes in because the enemy doesn't seem to have these limitations. With their light attack, they can fairly easily stun lock you because of how quick their attacks are, and there are often scenarios where you start a light attack and they quickly start their light attack and hit you. They also seem to have more range than you, probably why they can stun lock you. So how do you win? Well, aside from general luck, there is one solid way to punish the AI: heavy attacks. I mentioned before that heavy attacks are slow and deal a lot of damage. I tended to avoid using it because I was already finding it difficult to land hits with the light attack, but thankfully the AI has no such reservations. The best way to deal safe damage is to bait out a heavy attack, which you can do by walking up to the enemy and waiting for them to attack. If they begin a light attack animation, quickly back away or block, then give yourself some distance before making another attempt. However, if they do the slower heavy attack animation, quickly hit them with your light attack, but don't spam it. Wait to see if they'll use another heavy attack or a light attack. With this strategy, I was able to take out all the fighters that were giving me trouble, which included Terex, Shrak, Vorox, and the Skrull. You'll notice that I only mentioned 4 fighters, so what about Malum? Well, Malum is different. And that's pretty much it when it comes to the fights in this game. They can be kind of tedious and slow, but once you figure out how to beat it, it becomes a fun game for what it is. But the thing is, I had only played the first game for a little bit as a kid. It was the second one that I found really fun, so let's get into it. Now, where the first game was fairly slow and somewhat tedious at points, the second game is still kind of slow. However, there are a few quality of life improvements that make this version much more fun to play. One of these changes is that the animations are much faster. That includes things from your attack speed to your movement speed, and it's amazing what such a seemingly small change can do to make the game much more fun to play. Here's both games side by side to show the difference. Another one of the changes, and one of my favorite, is the addition of a dodge, allowing you to sidestep enemy attacks or backflip in spectacular fashion, even giving you the ability to chain it into a Thornax shot. Another change is that those Thornax shots are no longer limited to 3, but instead recharge throughout the fight. Since this applies to both you and your opponent, it keeps fights interesting at both close and far range, and makes mastering the dodge ever more important. Finally, there's the addition of this funny taunt animation, which serves as both a funny thing to do during fights and as a way for the enemy to leave themselves open to attacks. One of the next changes is something you'll notice as soon as you boot up the game: the music. Compared to the last game's relative silence and the eerie backrooms music, Glatorian Arena 2 has a banging rock theme. The only unfortunate thing about it is that it won't play during actual fights. Still, when it does play, it does a great job at getting you pumped up for the fights. Other than that, the game is pretty much identical to the first. you fight through 5 leagues of the same fighters to become champion of the arena. The arena itself is different from the first game, as the original Magna Arena was supposedly destroyed in an off-screen attack by the Skrull, an event which threatens the Glatorian system and allegory society. That's lore stuff though. Getting back to the arena, it's thankfully much smaller than the old Colosseum, meaning it's much easier to catch up to your opponent or push them into a corner. The arena is basically just a small lava pit, but honestly I like it a lot more because its small size complements the faster gameplay and keeps you fighting instead of walking. But the new changes don't mean that they entirely got rid of the other arena. There's actually a separate mode without the league system that takes you back to the old Arena Magna. It wasn't a mode I played a lot as there's no progression and you can just pick who you fight, but it's nice that they found a way to include things from the first game. And that's pretty much it for the second game. It was the one I played the most as a kid, and I enjoyed returning to it because of all the quality of life improvements added to it after the first game. But there's one last Glatorian Arena game, and it's one I didn't even know existed. Now the third game is interesting in that it's a combination of both the first and second. You can play as characters from both the first and second waves of toys, and across a few different arenas. It feels even more like a proper fighting game, with even faster movement and a couple of unlockable moves like a kick. There's even a new announcer like you might see in other fighter games.
Ready. Fight!
Perhaps because there's so many fighters, the whole league system and the awards have been removed, which I think is really unfortunate because I think it was a fun way to measure your progression and feed into the whole arena fighter feel of the last 2 games. But what it does well, the fighting, it does really well, and if you just like the fighting aspects of the other 2 games, then 3 gives you a nice gauntlet of fighters to play against. Playing through these games again, it was really neat seeing the game developers improve the fighting mechanics of each iteration. Playing the first and third games back to back, even with such minor changes between each, makes them feel like completely different experiences. The first is slow, lumbering, and feels more akin to the controls from an early survival horror game than a fighter, whereas the second and third games are super snappy and energetic due to the faster movement and added abilities. But honestly, I found all 3 experiences to be fun in their own way and worth revisiting because they don't ask much of you. That was a lot of the beautiful simplicity of the old Flash games. Hop on for a quick experience during class or working on homework and dick around for a time. And these games still have that charm. But anyways, thank you so much for watching this video and looking at some of these old games with me. I hope you have a good day.